Hey y'all, what's up? This is your girl Classy C, and I'm back. I am praying, but I am not seeing any results. I am praying. Why am I praying and I'm not seeing any results? First, before I go into it, y'all know what to do. Click that button, subscribe, like, and share. All right, let's get to it. So, the last video I talked about the 4 key points about prayer. I think it's very, very important, right, to understand the basic of prayer, to understand the principles of prayer, right? Why? Because so many people avoid prayer. I'm going to say that again. So many people avoid prayer. And they avoid prayer for 2 reasons. There may be other reasons as well, but I know for sure these 2 reasons. Many people avoid prayer, number one, because they are afraid to get disappointed. The second reason is because they feel like that it's taking too long. I've been praying this for months and nothing is happening. Right, I'm afraid, that I'm gonna get disappointed. I find myself, praying for this, and then it turns out to be something else. I find myself praying for healing, and I end up having to get surgery. Right, I find myself praying for this particular job, and I end up getting another job. Right, and so those are the 2 main reasons why people avoid prayer, and that prayer is misunderstood. So the 4 key points that I talked about in the last video, right, to get you to understand, right, to help you not to avoid prayer, is number one, comfort. I mentioned about comfort, that when you pray, that you will find comfort, right? When you pray to God, when you pray to Abba, when you pray to Yahweh, our Father who is heaven, who sits on the throne, you're going to find comfort. Number two, access. I talked about access. When you get time, go back to the first video. And then the third one is results. You're going to see results. And then the last key point is that it's going to take work. Prayer takes work. And so if you can keep these 4 key points in your mind and in your heart, you won't avoid prayer. You won't try to avoid prayer. If you could just remember that when I pray, I'm going to have comfort, I'm going to have access, I'm going to see results, and that it does take work. All right. And so when you get a chance, go back to that video and watch it. So today I want to talk about the principles of prayer. You've already learned about the 4 key points to remember regarding prayer. And so now I want to talk about the principles of prayer, the principles of prayer. Number one, the first principle of prayer is that you have to remember that prayer is about God's purpose. That's it. It's all about God's purpose. It's about what God wants. It's about his will. It's about his desires, right? Because God, he's the beginning, he's our ending, he knows our tomorrow, he knows our future, right? So it's all about his purpose. And to be honest with you, you want his purpose. Because we can't see tomorrow. We can't even see in the next minute, in the next hour, what will happen, right? So it's all about his purpose. Go to Proverbs 19:21. Proverbs 19:21 says, "There are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord that shall stand." And so we come to God, right? We have, we have our desires, we have our will, we there's some things that we want, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about God's purpose. It's all about his will. It's all about what he wants. And if our will does not line up with his, guess what? You're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. And then look, it's for your best. It's for your best interest, right? Because God has your best interest at heart, right? He wants the best for you. He wants you to be successful. He wants you to succeed. He wants you to prosper, right? He wants you to blossom. He wants you to grow. He wants you to have, he wants everything to be good for you, right? So many plans are in man's heart, but the Lord purpose shall prevail. And that's what you want. That's really what you want. And so basically his purpose is better than our plan. Period. His purpose is better than our plan. I remember, for an example, some years ago, I was, I knew it was time to look for a home, and I had started looking. But guys, I wanted to stay in the city, right? I was looking in the city, my realtor, was taking me, house to house in the city, right? But at the same time, I was praying and asking God, okay, Lord, what's your will? What's your will, right? And I'm thinking his will is for me to stay in the city, okay? And so, I could not find a home. It was like every home that I saw, it was not working out. It was not working out. And so my realtor said one time, she said, how about we open it up to the suburbs? And I was like, I really don't, want to go to the suburbs. I really prefer to stay in the city, and I was like, she's like, well, just be open just a little bit. So I agreed. And I was like, okay. So she opened it up to the suburbs, right? And so we started looking in the suburbs. I saw like two homes in the suburbs. The first home that I saw, I'm trying to think. The first home that I saw, I liked it. I liked the home. It was newly renovated. I was like, yes. I didn't like the neighborhood, but I liked the home. It was, already finished. I didn't have to do no, updates or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, I want this. I want that, And it was more. It was actually a little bit out of my price range, but I was willing to sacrifice it, right? And then also too, even though the home was newly renovated, it wasn't room to grow. But I was thinking like, hey, this is just for me, and my kids, and that's it, right? And so she said, well, let's look at this other home. I said, okay. Looked at this other home. The home was bigger, but it needed some TLC, some tender loving care. The neighborhood was beautiful. You can hear the birds chirping, the grass. I looked at the neighbor's grass. It was pretty green. Everybody take care of their grass. But the inside, I just really I didn't want to have to move into a home and have to do anything. And so, looked at it and I was just like, no. And then my realtor, she was just like, oh, this home got some good bones. You really, she's like, I don't, try to influence or convince my clients, but she was like, I don't know, you should really consider, And so I was like, okay, I'll think about it. But my mind was really set on the other house. Y'all. Once again, I looked at the house. Like I said, I didn't want to have to move into a house where I have to do, work to it. I wanted everything to be finished, new, all of that. My daughter had a dream. And she said, Ma, I saw our new house. I was like, oh, okay, And this girl described the room, one of the rooms that was in the house that I did not want. Did you hear what I just said? She described, now my daughter didn't see the house. She didn't go to the house with me. I went by myself. She described the room, y'all, to the T. And once she described it, I was like, oh my God, right? And then I remember when the Lord gave me a dream about the new house, that the neighborhood was really nice. The neighborhood was really nice. I remember seeing, the outside well kept, right? Kept up well. And so I put two to two together, and I started praying about it. And I started feeling like The Holy Spirit just really like pushing me in that direction, in the house that I did not want. Make a long story short, y'all, I end up getting a house. Now, the house that I thought I did not want, I ended up having another baby. The house that I thought I did not want was bigger. I had more rooms. I have 4 bedrooms. 4 bedrooms, right? A big, large basement. Now, the other house that I thought I wanted, it was only 3. And like I told you earlier, it wasn't room to grow. And so I'm telling you this to say that we think sometimes that we know what we want, but God knows best. We think that we know what we want, and we only thinking that because we're looking at our now. We can't see the future, but God can see the future. He see our tomorrow. He see, our children. He sees everything, right? And so I end up getting a house, and it all worked out well. So well, y'all. As far as the TLC, the tender loving care, listen, me and my friend came in there. We done pulled up the carpet. I mean, it all fell in place. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I'm gonna say that again. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So God's plan, right? Because we're still talking about his purpose, right? His purpose, his plan is good, it's best, right? And so his purpose is better than our plan. My plan was to move into the house. I ain't had nothing, I had to do anything to it. It was smaller, I didn't care for the neighborhood, but I was willing to settle. And that's the thing too. We have to be careful, right? When we are praying, right? You don't want to settle. You want everything what God wants for you. Don't settle. All right. But God, he did that for me. He changed that up. He's like, listen, you think you want that, but I got something bigger and greater for you. So I hope that testimony, blessed you, right? God's purpose is better than your plan. All right. Number 2. So you always in prayer, you want to pray his purpose. Number 2, God placed his word, which is his promise, right? Above even himself. And so God has a high standard for his word. And so in other words, God is committed to his word. He's faithful to his word. He's not going to lie to you about his word. If he said it, because he said it, right, to you, he's going to do it. So you got to remember that when you pray, right, his word, right, he placed his word above himself. He's not a God that's going to lie to you. He don't play about his word. He is the God of his word. All right. He's not like man, right? You can't compare God to man when we're talking about promises, right? Things that he's going to do for you. See, man will disappoint you, man, they won't come through sometimes, but God, because he said it, he's going to do it. So you got to remember that when you pray, right? When you pray, his promises, his purpose is going to happen. Okay, so he values his word. So when you pray his word, he honors his word because he is the word. All right. Number 3, this is the third principle to remember. When you pray, it's important to pray God's will, right? God's will is his word. Once again, okay? His will never go against his will will never go against his will or his word. All right? So, let's do a recap. Principles of prayer. The principles to remember, right, regarding prayer is God's purpose. Number 2, God placed his word above himself. In other words, he valued his word. His word is a high standard, right? He is obligated to his word. Number 3, the third principle to remember regarding prayer is God's will. You want his will. You want his purpose. You want his will. And then number 4, the fourth principle regarding prayer is remembering God's holiness. Remember that God is pure, that God is set apart, that God is perfect, right? Remember God's holiness. Once again, he's not like man. You cannot compare him. You can't put him in the same category as man. So when you are praying to him, right? When you are talking to him, remember that God is set apart. He's holy. He's pure. And the things that he promised you, once again, he's going to do it. So those are the principles. Those are the 4 principles of prayer. And so if you can remember that, 4 principles regarding prayer, if you can remember that, you won't avoid prayer. If you can remember that, you won't even, prayer is not, it won't even, you won't even misunderstand prayer, right? Because you understand the principles of prayer. And the principles of prayer is when you pray, God's purpose, you're going to pray his, remember that his word, right, is a high standard, that he's faithful to his word. And then you're going to pray God's will. And then think about his holiness, that he's holy. Think about his character. All right. So that's it, y'all. The next video will be what is prayer? So I hope and pray that this bless you all. And remember the 4 key points: comfort, access, results, and that it takes work, right? And then remember the principles: God's purpose, God's place, his word. He placed his word above even himself, God's will, and God's holiness. All right, y'all. Click that button, subscribe, like, and share. I hope and pray that this bless you. All right. See ya.